Just as a reminder to everyone, we're going to go ahead and start in a couple minutes. People are still coming in, and Meredith has such a great topic. We want to make sure that everybody has a chance to log in, settle in, and get ready. So we will start at 12:03. We're going to start at, they said 12:03 is what I'll.
Yeah, you're still on the sitting state, still that camera.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this month's Distinguished Sales Speaker Series. It's wonderful to see all of you signing on, including our speaker, Meredith Elliott, who I will talk about in just a second. For those of you who are new to our series, this is a monthly series aimed at bringing sales education to the forefront of our development efforts. We started this back in February and have been going every month. If you go to our website at franklin.edu and look under the Leadership Center, you'll see our speaker series, and you could go back and see some of the speakers that we've had previously, as well as see some of the great talent that we have coming up in the next few months. So with that, I'm going to start and give a brief introduction of our guest, Meredith Elliott Powell. She is a business growth, sales, and leadership expert, and she is known as the most booked female business keynote speaker who delivers it all: motivation, entertainment, and powerful content. She's going to be speaking with us today on Thrive, turning uncertainty to your competitive advantage. She's bringing you today her presentation based off her most recent book, which I have wonderful news. All of you on today's event are going to receive a copy of that. As part of our arrangement with Meredith, she graciously agreed to let us send each of you her newest books. So in addition to hearing straight from the author all of her insight, you'll also receive her book. So thank you, Meredith. Before I hand over to her, I want to also thank one of the guests in our audience today, who is really the impetus for why we started all of this, Mr. Phil Fankhauser. He is the one who really understood the need to have sales education. And so I want to thank, respectfully, I want to thank Phil for helping us to put this series on. As we turn back to Meredith, Meredith is really, her topic really focuses on competitive, challenging, and constantly changing in today's marketplace. So to grow and compete, you need a new perspective and a new approach to sales, marketing, and business growth. In her very high energy, power-packed session, she's going to share innovative strategies you need to redefine disruption, put you in the driver's seat, and turn uncertainty to your competitive advantage. Her presentation is based on research from the book I just mentioned, Thrive, Turning Uncertainty to Competitive Advantage, where she studied 9 companies who started in the late 1700s to early 1800s that are still thriving in business today. Businesses that have survived world wars, economic depression, and even the pandemic. Through her research, she found a powerful methodology for what it takes to navigate change at this level, to find opportunity in crisis, and how to inspire your members to move from reacting change to driving it. In her program, she's going to walk us through the steps we need to strategically move forward, proactively prepare for disruptions, stand out from the competition, and dominate in the marketplace. You'll leave today with a personal strategy that helps you ensure you have what you need to stay razor focused, highly flexible, and ready to turn uncertainty to your competitive advantage. So with that, I'm going to hand off to our wonderful guest, Meredith, and take it from there.
Thanks, Sherry. I am excited to be here and really excited to present this information today. I also am excited to report that you have caught me at a live event in Atlanta, Georgia, hence the incredible background here. I'm getting ready to speak this afternoon at the Outbound conference. And lucky for you, because I thought I was going to be presenting this from my hotel room, but lucky for me, I am in the Outbound stage with a fabulous production crew. But I got to tell you, wow, whoever thought a virus could so drastically disrupt the marketplace? If 2020 has taught us nothing else, it has taught us that our lives, our businesses, and our customers, they can change in a moment's notice. And you need to ask yourself a question. Are you prepared? Are you ready? Because right now you have a choice to make. It's a choice to do nothing or to continue to do what you have always done and hope, even pray, that nothing's going to change, that the tides are going to stay in your favor. Or you can choose to use this time, not only in this presentation, but in the time we have in the next few months to get ready for the next big shift or the next big change, because I think we all know that it is coming around the corner. Now, I certainly hope that you are going to choose the latter, but that choice, that is up to you. But for the next 45 minutes that I have you here, I am going to cover the strategies, the steps, everything that you need to know to turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage. That's right. When I get ready to leave this stage, this virtual stage, you're actually going to have a plan for making uncertainty and change not only work for you, but work for your teams. And you're going to have what you need to know to leave your competition in the dust. I really hope that sounds good. But before we dive into those strategies, before we dive into those steps, I want to back up a little bit. I want you to understand how I discovered the steps, how I discovered the strategies, but more importantly, why I know those strategies work. See, a couple of years ago, I became obsessed with the word uncertainty, how we think about it, how you feel about it, how you react to it. And let me tell you, you don't like the word. In fact, research says that you would rather I stand up here and tell you all the bad things that are going to happen in 2021, rather than to tell you I have no idea what is going to happen in 2021. Think about that. And here's the interesting thing is that uncertainty actually hinders us, not only in bad economic times, but actually in good economic times. It's an obstacle to success. See, back in 2018, 2019, do you all remember 2018 and 2019? Maybe we should just have a moment of silence for how good things were in 2018 and 2019. But back in 2018 and 2019, as I was making sales calls, just like most of you, I would walk into businesses and I would ask the question that we all ask, how's business? How are things? And here's what's interesting. Everybody would answer the same. Things are good. Things are great. In fact, I think we are headed for our best year on record. But this uncertainty, as if uncertainty always had to be a negative. It always had to be a bad thing. And that just got me wondering. That just got me thinking, what would happen if you flipped the script on that? What would happen if you actually started to think about uncertainty as opportunity? What if you and your team, anybody that you work with, started to think about uncertainty as something that didn't prevent growth, but actually propelled it? And what if you understood how to use uncertainty strategically to gain a competitive advantage? And that thought, that put me on a mission. I just became interested. I thought, I wonder if there's businesses and organizations, leaders out there that had actually done that, learned to use what is a negative for most and turned it into a positive for their organization. Now, let me tell you, there aren't many, but Sherry told you kind of part of this story in my introduction. I was able to find nine companies that have been in business since the late 1700s, early 1800s, and they are still in business, thriving today. Now, think about that. For any business that has been around that long, they have survived world wars, they have survived economic depression, and oh, yeah, they have not only survived one pandemic, but they have come through two pandemics. And I wanted to know why. Don't you want to know why? What were they doing that was so unique and so different? Well, what I discovered and what I researched became my 9-step formula for thriving in uncertainty. And in the time we have today, I'm going to walk you through all 9 of those steps. See, I promised you when I leave this stage, you're going to have a strategy and you're going to have a plan. Better than that, you're going to have a copy of my book, chock full of the stories and the worksheets, everything that you need to know to really start to think differently about uncertainty. Use uncertainty differently in your sales process and in your organization, and turn it in to your competitive advantage. But before we dive into those strategies, I want to see where you fall on the Thrive indicator scale, how far down the road you are to somebody who actually embraces uncertainty. So I want you to text the word redefined, REDEFINED, to 66866. If you text the word redefined to 66866, in fact, if you guys would put that in the chat, that'd be great. That's going to take you to my Thrive Indicator quiz. Everybody loves a quiz, and you're going to figure out where you fall on the Thrive Indicator scale, whether you are a reactor, an adapter, or a thriver. All you need to do is text that in, and that's not only going to provide you the results, but it's going to give you customized information that's going to make this presentation more pertinent. All right, one more thing before we dive in. I want to share a story, and it's a story I think you are all going to be able to relate to. See, I started 2020 off strong. In fact, by the first 2 months, I had closed more business than I had in the entire first quarter of 2019. I thought I was headed for my best year on record. And then in 1 week, the week of March 7th, we all remember that week, everything changed. I was sitting in front of my computer watching as every ounce of revenue, every client I had booked completely disappeared. Worse than that, I make my living as a keynote speaker, which means I get on planes, I travel around the world, I engage with thousands of people. So not only did I lose all my revenue, but my business model became completely unworkable, completely unusable. I could no longer get on planes. I could no longer engage with people. Now, at first, I got scared. Really frightened. I freaked out. I thought, I'm going to have to sell everything I own on eBay, or I'm going to have to deliver pizzas or do something. And then I got mad. I got really angry. This wasn't fair. Why was this happening to me? I hadn't done anything wrong. And then, thank goodness, I decided to take action. Now, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn or what action to take, but I went back to this research. I went back to these companies, and I decided to be my own guinea pig, to drink my own Kool-Aid. And I actually applied the strategies to my own business. And by June, I turned my business around. By September, I was on track to do as well as I had done in 2019. And by the end of the year, 2020 turned out to be my best year on record. Now, I share that with you because I want you to understand these strategies work. They work no matter the size of your organization. They work no matter the product you're selling. They work no matter the customer you are selling to. They work no matter the uncertainty you're facing. So even if 2020 was a great year for you, and for some organizations it was, or whether like me, your business was completely wiped out, these are the strategies you need. Use them in order. They have a compounding effect, and they are going to put you in a position of control to turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage. All right. I have kept you waiting long enough. Drum roll, please. Here we go. Strategy number 1. If you want to turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage, and I know that you do, you want to begin by knowing where you're headed. You need to begin with the end in mind. In other words, you need to have a vision. Not just a vision, you need to have a relentless vision, a vision that you are so focused on that really nothing gets in the way of that vision. A few years ago, there was a great story about a group of scouts getting ready to go on a whitewater rafting trip. Now, they had planned this whitewater rafting trip for over a year. But as luck would have it, 1 week before they were supposed to get on the river, Northern California experienced torrential downpours. So much rain that the class 2 and 3 rapids became class 4 and 5 rapids, really making the river unrunnable. And the guide suggested to these kids they not go. But you know, kids, you remember being a kid. They begged and they pleaded until the guide let them go on one condition. She said, you can go on this whitewater rafting trip as long as you sit through a safety talk. Now, we have all been on a whitewater rafting trip. We have all sat through a safety talk that is 15, 20 minutes. They slap a jacket on you and they throw you on the river. This safety talk was not like that. For 3 hours, these kids sat there as the guide told them every single obstacle they were going to hit on the river. She told them about the downed trees. She told them about the hidden rocks. She told them about the high water. But as much time as she spent focused on the obstacles, she spent 3 times as much time focused on what she called the vision of where the raft needed to go. And she explained it like this. She said, I need to make you aware of all the obstacles you are going to hit on the river. But if I leave you there and I focus your attention there, your raft is going to go there and it's going to get stuck. She said, I will immediately point out and keep you focused on the calm water where the raft needs to go. Because if I focus you there, it's going to pull you there like a magnet. You need to be focused on where you're headed. You need to be focused on where you're going. See, sales or businesses, it's the exact same way. The moment you hit uncertainty, you need a relentless vision. Now, I'm not talking about a vision you post on the wall and forget about it. It is one you talk about all the time. See, if you came home with me and you got up with me in the morning, first thing you would notice is I look nothing like this. You probably wouldn't even recognize me. But the second thing you would see is I grab a cup of coffee, I head upstairs to my office, and I read my relentless vision. On those cards, I have painted the future I see. I read those cards again at lunchtime, and I read them again before the end of the day. I am relentlessly focused on what I want to achieve and where I want to go. That is your foundational step to turning uncertainty into competitive advantage. You need a relentless vision. Now, before you think I am all Pollyanna and think you can just create a vision and somehow you are magnetically pulled there, we are headed into strategy number 2. And in strategy number 2, we are going to deal with the massive change and obstacles that uncertainty creates. You know, when I started researching the book, there was a great phrase that I picked up from the military called embrace the suck. And they said that the people who really make it through tough times are not optimists. They're not pessimists. They're realists. They deal with the challenges in front of them head on. And in uncertainty, the challenge that we've got to deal with is change. See, the thing about change is the change experts, the change gurus, they all tell us how to manage change. But what you need to understand about change in an uncertain environment is if you are managing it, you are already behind. You already lost. See, change can be your greatest opportunity if you see it coming. If you ignore change or wait for change to happen, change is going to bury you. See, change is like a muscle, and the more you work it, the more you talk about it, the more you discuss it, the more resilient you will become to change. And if you want to thrive in uncertainty, you need to start controlling change rather than allowing change to control you. We call this strategy conditioning yourself for change. You are going to create your future by anticipating your future. Now, I want you to grab a pen and a piece of paper because I've got a great tool for you to do this. I advise my clients to use this tool every 30 days when the uncertainty is really high in the marketplace. When it's not so high, use it every quarter. But the point is, you have to use it consistently. Are you ready? Okay, write these down. The tool is called a skeptic. Number 1, society. Number 2, competition. Number 3, economics. Number 4, politics. Number 5, technology. Number 6, industry. Number 7, customers. I'll repeat it. Society, competition, economics, politics, technology, industry, customers. Every 30 days, I want you to grab your team together. You don't have a team, a group of your peers, get a few of your customers, and just brainstorm what changes you see happening in those areas. What changes do you see happening in society? What changes do you see happening with competition? What's happening with technology? And after you brainstorm those things, just ask yourself, what of those changes do we need to be paying attention to now? What changes do we need to take action around? When I wrote the book, one of the companies that I studied was Jim Beam. I mean, who doesn't love a good shot of whiskey, right? And it's really interesting when you see the history of Jim Beam. The family moved into Kentucky, they built a distillery, and they quickly became a very, very successful whiskey company. But here's the problem, is that in the 1930s, the U.S. invoked prohibition. We actually made making alcohol and drinking alcohol illegal. Now, most other companies, most other distilleries went under. But luckily for Jim Beam, literally the man named for the company, kept an eye on the changes coming in the marketplace. And while all of his competitors believed that no changes would come into the marketplace, that prohibition would never be passed, he decided to prepare just in case, to be ready just in case. And he bought land in Florida, ready to grow citrus and be prepared with a way to support his family, protect his business should the worst change come into reality. So when prohibition was passed, his distillery was flattened. He moved his family to Florida, protected the family recipe, and supported himself for the next 10 years. Again, none of his competitors believed prohibition would last 10 years. Most had given up. 2 years before prohibition became illegal and they decided to allow people to produce alcohol again, to drink alcohol again, Jim Beam saw the writing on the wall. He went out, found investors, and the day that making alcohol became legal again, he was up and running in 3 days. From that day on, Jim Beam has stayed one of the most successful alcohol companies in the world, all because they anticipated change. If you want to thrive in uncertainty, you can't manage change. You have to anticipate change. You've got to be one step ahead of the changes coming in the marketplace. All right. But once you know the challenges that you're facing, once you know what you're up against, you need to start to think about how you're going to solve those challenges. Who can you work with to solve those challenges? I think this is one of the most important steps in the strategy. And that is, when it comes to thriving in uncertainty, competition has got to become collaboration. See, the problems you are facing, they're too big for one person, one industry, or one individual, one company to solve. You have to find ways to work together. So once you know the challenges you're facing, once you've gone through the skeptic tool, see, I told you these work together, then you have to ask yourself, who can we work with to solve these problems? See, it's not that you can't solve these problems on your own, you can, but in an uncertain marketplace, time and resources, they're of the essence, and you need to preserve as many as you can, and you need to move fast. Collaboration is the fastest way to move. One of my favorite stories from the book is from Aldi grocery store and McDonald's. See, when the pandemic hit, McDonald's was labeled an essential business. They were allowed to stay open, but in most communities, only their drive-throughs were allowed to stay open. Now, the challenge with that meant that while they were still allowed to be in business, they were going to need to furlough thousands of employees. These were employees, they didn't want to furlough. These were employees they had invested in and they trained. And these were employees they knew they were going to need to bring back once the pandemic was over. Enter Aldi grocery stores. Aldi grocery stores had the opposite problem because we were desperate to buy toilet paper. They needed to stay open 24 hours a day, and they didn't have enough employees to stay open that long. And the other problem was some of their employees didn't want to come to work because of the challenges of the pandemic. So McDonald's and Aldi decided to collaborate. McDonald's actually loaned their employees to Aldi grocery stores. Here's what McDonald's got. They got loyalty from those employees. While all the other fast food restaurants were furloughing employees, they got to look like the good guys. They got to ensure that these employees they cared about were taken care of. And best of all, when they were able to open their restaurants again, they knew they would be able to not only bring these employees back, but they would be more loyal. What did Aldi grocery stores get? They got employees that were already trained, already ready, and willing to go to work. They got a temporary workforce that they wouldn't have to furlough. And they got a group of people that wanted to help them thrive in an uncertain marketplace. So you need to ask yourself right now, what's the biggest challenge you're facing? Or it's a great question to ask your customers in the sales process. What's the biggest challenge they're facing? And who can they collaborate with to solve that problem? In an uncertain marketplace, competition becomes collaboration. All right, we are cooking with gas. We know that we need to begin with a relentless vision. We need to be so focused on where we are headed, we are pulled there like a magnet. We need to condition ourselves for change. We need to control change rather than allowing change to control us. And we need to forget about competing, and we need to start thinking about who we can collaborate with within our industry and outside of our industry. Partnership is powerful in an uncertain marketplace. Next up was the strategy that surprised me most of all. I never saw it coming. One of the most challenging things to do in an uncertain marketplace, one of the most difficult, is to make decisions. How are you supposed to make decisions when you don't know where you're going, where you're headed, or what's going to happen? I mean, one of two things happen. We either get so fearful that we freeze because we're afraid to make the wrong move, or we grab at anything. Either way, we waste precious time and we waste precious resources. How do you make decisions in an uncertain marketplace? Every single company I researched, every single one I talked with made decisions exactly the same way in an uncertain marketplace, no matter the uncertainty they faced. They made decision by knowing their core values. And that's how you thrive in an uncertain marketplace. That's our next strategy, to know your core. See, once you know your core values, then you use those like a litmus test, because when you know your core values, you use every decision and ask yourself, does it align with our core values? If it does, it's the right decision for you. If it doesn't align with your core values, you don't. And somehow staying true to your core values will guide you through any single challenge you face. One of the companies that we talked to for the book was Chick-fil-A, a company that a lot of people love and are seriously willing to stand in line for a long time to get a chicken sandwich. One thing you may not know about Chick-fil-A is the reason they're not open on Sundays. See, when Chick-fil-A was founded, they were founded as a faith-based organization. Agree with that or not, it was one of their core values. And the founder of Chick-fil-A asked himself, how can I possibly ask my employees to come to work on Sunday when one of our core values is family and faith? If I am going to take a day and spend with my family and practice my faith, I feel that I must extend that to my employees. Everybody thought he was nuts. Everybody thought he was so crazy, because there was no way he could run a successful fast food restaurant by staying open, by staying closed on Sundays. But he did it anyway. He aligned to his core values. And today, Chick-fil-A is the third largest fast food restaurant in the country, despite having less locations than most of their competitors. Core values are powerful. You need to get clear on your core and use them for every decision you make. Use them for the customers you sell to, use them for the employees you hire, use them for every single decision you make in your organization, and they are going to guide you through any challenge you face. One of the stories we used in the book was King Arthur Flour, and I will not ruin the surprise for you, but it is a really powerful story about one of the oldest flour companies in the United States of America. All right, this next strategy is my absolute favorite, because this next strategy is all about making money. It is all about sales. And believe me, you can make money, you can sell, and you can grow in an uncertain environment, even if you work in an industry that has been completely decimated like mine. When you are faced with an uncertain marketplace, the one thing that you need to understand about growth is that it happens from the inside out, meaning you need to secure your base. That's our strategy. Focus on your existing customers. Why? Because you can't help new customers until you understand the problems your existing customers are facing. I'm going to repeat that. You can't help new customers until you solve the problems your existing customers are having. See, what we sold before COVID, what we're selling during COVID, and what we're going to sell after COVID, it has all changed, and you need to be relevant for your customers. The only way to grow in an uncertain marketplace is to solve the right problem. I want to tell you a story about Procter & Gamble, another company that you'll read about in the book. What a lot of people don't know about Procter & Gamble, P&G, is they were founded in the early 1800s by two brothers, Procter and Gamble. They were marrying sisters, and their future father-in-law said, boys, why don't you quit competing with one another, and why don't you form a company? and Procter and Gamble was born. Now, the very first product they wanted to take to market was soap. Talk about a commodity. How do you differentiate yourself in a crowded market of soap? How do you gain market share selling soap? Well, true to form, Procter and Gamble started this business by staying relevant, by not putting anything on the market until they understood the problem they were solving. So they went out to customers and they asked them about soap. They said, tell us about soap. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? People said, we love soap. We're willing to buy soap. But the problem with soap is that when you use it, you lather up, but it slips out of your hands. It falls to the bottom of the bathtub, and then you have to feel around for it. Customers told Procter and Gamble, quote unquote, we want a soap that floats. Procter and Gamble listened. They injected air into a bar of soap, and Ivory soap was born with the tagline, if any of you remember, a soap that floats. And by the end of the 1800s, Procter and Gamble was a $1 million company. Think about that. By the end of the 1800s, they were a $1 million company. Not because they sold a different type of product, not because they sold a cheaper price, but because they understood you have to solve the right problem. See, their competitors were selling soaps that smelled good, soaps that came in different shapes and different colors. But what Procter and Gamble was selling was they were solving the right problem. That's the question you need to answer. What is the current problem your customer has? And stay in touch, because that problem will change. All right, we're coming into the last few strategies. And this next one is close to my heart, because even before I researched the book, I passionately believed in this strategy. Build your network. It will change your life. In an uncertain environment, you have got to stay in touch with your network. You have got to build those relationships. I want you to think about this. There is absolutely no problem you're facing, no issue you're having, no challenge that's in front of you that somebody that you're connected to hasn't already solved or is connected to somebody who can help you solve that problem. And all you've got to do is stay in connection and stay in relationship with them. The more you build your network, the more you are going to change your life. You know, when I wrote the book, I got the opportunity to interview an idol of mine, Tom Fazio. In fact, he wrote the foreword for the book, and I really suggest you read it because he wrote a powerful foreword. Now, for those of you who don't know who Tom Fazio is, he is arguably one of the most successful golf architects in the world. And what a lot of people don't know about Tom is that he grew up a very working class in Eastern Pennsylvania, but he always had a dream of being an architect. And after high school, he didn't go to college. He went to work for his Uncle George, who was in the golf business. But his Uncle George was pretty tough and pretty persnickety and had a rule that if you wanted to get married and you wanted to have a family, you couldn't work for him. Well, when Tom fell in love and got married, he had to give up his opportunity and his thought of ever taking over George's business. And now, with no connections, no money, and no resources, he had to figure out how to achieve his dream. Enter the power of networking. Tom thought to himself, if I can just get myself to the masters, then I can make the connections I need to make to put me on the road to becoming a successful golf course designer. But you got to remember, Tom didn't have any money. And he and Sue went on to have 6 kids, so he even had less money than he started with. But every year, he would scrape up every penny he had and go to the Masters. He even took Sue on her honeymoon to the Masters. And he would work at the Masters, building connections and relationships with people he would stay in touch with all year long. And to this day, Tom can tell you he can trace every golf course he has ever designed back to those connections he made at the Masters. So the question on the table to you is, where's your Masters? Where are the connections that you need to be building to help you overcome the challenges and overcome the problems? Remember strategy number 3, competition becomes collaboration? Well, you're going to need those relationships, and you better be working them all the time. And speaking of relationships, it leads us in to our 7th strategy. Listen, there is very little you can control in an uncertain marketplace, very little, but you can control the power of the people that you surround yourself with, how committed they are, how engaged they are, how passionate they are to help you succeed. But you have to ask yourself, are you attracting those type of people? Are you creating an environment that allows people to help you be successful? See, everybody thinks that the problems with engagement today, and I know we're at an all-time low with employee engagement, but everybody seems to think that it's a generational issue. Like there is something wrong with this younger generation. But let me tell you, there is nothing wrong with this younger generation. For any of you who are like me, who are well over 50, you probably grew up in an environment like I did. My father was the breadwinner in our family, and every day he would come home at exactly 6 o'clock. He would fix himself a scotch and soda, and before he sat down to eat his meat and potato, he would complain about the younger generation, my generation. We had no work ethic, no commitment, no loyalty. He did not know what would become of this world were it left to my generation. See, we have been complaining about the younger generation since the age of Socrates. And the problem with engaging either employees or peers, the problem with getting people to be passionate about helping you be successful, it's not a generational issue. It's a cultural issue. And this strategy is about strengthening your team. And if you want to strengthen your team, you need to learn to lead through the power of the question. Because when you ask people how, instead of telling them what to do, you simultaneously give them voice and responsibility. You give them ownership and skin in the game. And in an uncertain environment where you can't guarantee people a job, you can't guarantee people a raise, if you guarantee them a voice, they are going to be as passionate as you are about making your organization successful. All right, we only have 2 strategies left, and I'm going to wrap these together. Our eighth strategy is that you need to understand that there is more happening outside of your organization than inside it that can impact your ability to be successful. Through no fault of your own, some of the strategies you're using right now won't be relevant 3 months from now. But you have to have the ability to objectively look at your sales process and ask yourself, what's working? What isn't working, and what do I need to be doing that I'm not doing that could help me be successful? The tool we use for this, again, write it down. It's called a seeds, a weeds, and a needs. A seeds, or what do you need to be doing that's really helping you move your sales process forward? What do you need to be doing more of? Weeds are what's weighing you down. What do you need to stop doing? And needs are, what do you need to be doing that you're not doing? You know, I told you I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and this morning I got up to go for a run, and I don't really know where I am in Atlanta. I didn't want to get lost, and I don't know what parts are safe and what aren't. So I got this little half-mile loop, and I just decided to run it about 5 or 6 times. Well, my first go round on the loop, there was a homeless man on the corner asking people for 50 cents. I ignored him the first time I went around, but I felt a little guilty on the second wrap, so I gave him $1. I ran around again and smiled at him. The 4th time I went, he had changed to the other side of the street. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder why he did that. The 5th time I went around, he was still there. And the 6th time was going to be my last go round. I decided to ask him. And he said, He said, well, I noticed I was over on that side of the street, but there seemed to be more people on the other side of the street. And then I was asking everybody for 50 cents and they gave me $1. He said, I just wondered if I asked people for $1, what they would give me. And when I started asking people for $1, they started giving me 5. See, that's a beautiful example of a seeds, weeds, and needs. I don't care what you are selling, how hard you think it is. That guy's on a corner selling nothing and getting $5 for it. There's a lot to be learned by objectively looking at your process. Now, our last strategy is simply to rinse and repeat. This is a fluid strategy, and there's a lot of uncertainty and change happening in the marketplace, and you need to do this over and over again. You need a relentless vision. You need to condition yourself for change. You need to collaborate rather than compete. You need to know your core values. You need to be relevant and secure your base. Begin by talking to your customers. You need to build your network, strengthen your team, shed fast and keep moving, and rinse and repeat. Listen, I know that these are challenging times. I am right out there with you. And I can make a list of all the reasons you can be successful and all the reasons you can't. And I have been doing this long enough to know that the reasons you can't succeed, they will always, always be longer than the reasons that you can. But the difference between people who succeed and people who don't is not money, time, or resources. It is what they choose to focus on. Now think about that. I just told you that the most important thing you need to be successful, it is something you have 100% control over. It is what you choose to focus on. And if you focus on this strategy, if you read this book, I promise you, you are not only going to feel differently about change and uncertainty, but you are going to turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage. All right, I'm going to turn this back over to you. See if we have any questions. I know that was a lot of information really fast, but I am passionate about how you feel differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's on her end, not on her.
Meredith, I think we're starting to get a little interference with your audio. I don't know if that's just on our end, just as an FYI. So I'm not sure if we caught the last few minutes of that. Can you hear us now?
Something happened with
Okay.
the last few minutes of the video?
Just
I can hear you now.
the last
Yep.
30 seconds, you were kind of going in and out. So now you're perfect. No worries.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
No worries. I want to thank you. That was wonderful. My team and I were here scribbling notes. So thank you so much. Great attitude, great common sense things that when you see them all together, they make sense. Your example of the homeless person was really interesting because, you know, they're not selling anything, but they're selling themselves. And I think every day we sell ourselves at some level on whether it's our idea at work, whether it's trying to convince a spouse to buy a new house, there's always some level of selling going on. So thank you so much. I want to, we have a few minutes, so I want to open it up to if anybody has questions. You want to put them in the chat. We'll go ahead and read those and try to see if we can answer them for you. I will say, Lisa Edson, can't wait for the book. We're excited to send it to you. That will be going out within the next 1 to 2 weeks. So you should be, if you want to check your mailboxes, you'll see that soon. Again, the book name is Thrive, Turning Uncertainty to Your Competitive Advantage. Lynn wanted to share her appreciation, said your presentation was great and informative. Again, if we have a question, I think some of the stuff, if I was thinking through, and I think we all look at it and say, how does this impact my own world? As an alumni coordinator, I'm always looking at how do I compete for the attention of our alumni? You know, there's a lot pulling at them right now, whether it's their family, whether it's re-engaging with the world. People don't necessarily want to sit behind a computer right now. They want to get out. They want to be out there. So lots of ways that I'm looking at how this is going to impact myself. So here's one. Thought paying attention to existing clients was spot on to gain information how to improve. So I think that was a really great, David Gonzalez, thank you. I think that was a great one. we often think of what do I need to do to change, but sometimes it's not what do you change? How do you buffer up what you have? If you want to talk a little bit more about that. Do we have you, Meredith? I think we're having some trouble with your.
Just one of my favorites.
Meredith, we're having a little trouble with your audio. You're kind of going in and out.
Audio. They're working on it right now. It's the Wi-Fi issue.
Okay, try it again.
Yeah, they're grabbing it right now.
Okay, perfect. You're coming in and out. I will say as they're working that out, for those of you who have changes to your, you're still iffy.
You guys let them know the chat, you're working on it. That'd be great.
For those of you who are asking questions in the chat about where the book will be sent to, we are taking note of all of these, so we will make sure we have the right address. Meredith, you want to try one more time?
All right. Yeah, is that any better? Can you hear me?
You're still really kind of foggy there.
They're working on it.
Okay. Well, what I will say is while they're working on that, for those of you who are on the call, I want to say if you'd like today's event, please look for an email that will be coming out. We want to make sure that we're meeting your expectations. So if you can take a moment and fill that out and let us know if this did meet your expectation, if there are other topics you're interested in, it helps us as we plan our future events. Speaking of our future events, if you weren't paying attention at the beginning when we had our hold slide, we do have speakers set up for July, August, and September. Those are going to be Lauren Bailey in July speaking about field versus inside selling. What's the difference? August is going to be account-based marketing, ABM demystified. And September, we have sales negotiation. So great topics. We invite you to visit our website at franklin.edu/leadership/sales speaker series to find more information. We're also going to be announcing that we have an undergraduate sales micro-credential. So if you've attended these speakers events and you really like what you're learning from them, and you want to be able to go back to your employer or to your team and say, look what I've done, a micro-credential is a great way to do that. We have information that will be on our website within the next week. So make sure you look for sales micro-credential on our website at franklin.edu. With that, I'm going to try to check back in and see if Meredith is how we're working over there. Still working on the sound. No worries. If there's other questions for us that we can maybe.
How's this, Sherry? Can you hear me?
I hear you. You're still very staticky. Okay. Well, no worries. Technology is a wonderful thing. It's wonderful when it works, and it's still helpful when it doesn't. So we'll plow through this. No worries at all. If there are questions you have about the series, about our upcoming micro-credential, I will tell you also that the university, at the prompting of our benefactor, is looking into the possibility of sales education. It's a long process, and we want to make sure that, as we do with all of our programs, that we're bringing forth the very best curriculum that is designed in a manner that is going to give you what you actually need in the workforce. So stay tuned for more information on that as well. I think given the time, it looks like we might have to go ahead and just say, if you have questions that we were unable to address with Meredith, please feel free to shoot us an email. If you want to send that to communityrelations@franklin.edu. Again, it's communityrelations, one word, @franklin.edu. We would be happy to share those questions with Meredith, get you an answer, and respond back. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. I especially want to thank Meredith. Meredith, your insight was fantastic. I can't wait to read your book. I think I love the idea of the research with the insight. I think it's going to be a great combination. I want to thank everybody for being here today, and please ask that you take a moment to fill out the survey we'll be sending you shortly. With that, I want to tell everybody have a great afternoon, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.